Today I'm speaking to Alexa Idama, classical Pilates instructor and the founder of Peachtree Pilates here in Atlanta, Georgia. We talk about her passion for Pilates, fitness, expectations, and how she went from teaching in other people's studios to starting her own Pilates teacher training and opening her own studio. What were we just talking about before?
I love your ring.
This one?
Yeah.
Thank you. Girl, I wish I knew. I always get these compliments and I can't remember the lady I bought it from, but she is here in Atlanta.
In Atlanta?
And I would love to tag her or something. But
That's
I can't
gorgeous.
remember.
And it doesn't look uncomfortable either.
Not
it's
at all.
not like going over.
So she is she's American, but her husband is Kenyan.
Okay.
And so all her stuff like this she made, but she sells a lot of like Kenyan stuff that they source there and bring back.
Yeah.
Have you know those like bead necklace?
No, I have a couple of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Those
and
are
it's so funny,
cool.
your necklace.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have the necklace, but before when I was in corporate and I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to do with life.
Right.
I took a jewelry making course. So I have bracelets that match that
Really?
necklace, but in copper and silver.
Wow.
And I remember I made those. So so I still have like a couple
Do
of
you?
But then I realized in that process I don't really want to make jewelry
That's
either.
amazing. That's so interesting.
I like buying it, but I don't.
Yeah. It's so tedious. I can imagine. I need my glasses. But so this necklace, I just bought it last weekend at an estate sale. He was totally creeped out. I bought a whole bunch of stuff. I love estate sales.
Yes.
Alexa, if you see any in your neighborhood, please call me and tell me.
I try to like
Yes,
when I see them not go, because I end up like buying all this old junk and then I'm like, I'll use it at some point, or I see something where I'm like, oh, I could refinish that. And then it's sitting in my garage for like 3 years.
That's a tough one. That's a really hard one, because I used to have that impulse of, especially things on the side of the street. Oh, wow, I could refinish that, quick little YouTube video. And I had to stop because I never refinish anything. And actually, you know what? I don't even know how to. I don't even have the tools.
Well, I refinished a few pieces.
Did you?
But then there's sometimes you get halfway through and you lose motivation.
Really?
And it's just unfinished. Like it's like stripped, but like rotting in your,
No. Yeah.
So I have a few, and then my husband's just like, get rid of this thing.
Get rid of it. It's like put it back on the corner.
Yeah. He's like, what is this you're bringing home?
Let somebody else handle it.
So,
that is a problem. But for me, like I'm really good now being in a smaller house. I mean, I've always had a small house. I didn't come from a bigger one, but being in a small house, I don't have space, and I'm really like, I don't like junk and clutter. So when I go to these estate sales, I'm never tempted by furniture. If it's something like, oh my God, I have to have this, I'll get rid of something. But I just have so little space. So I'm just really buying clothes and jewelry. It's not that big of a deal.
But it's not, it's pretty, and you're using it. So, and if you don't use it anymore, you can always donate it or sell it. Yeah. And it's pretty.
Exactly. But I'm a hoarder. So I'm not a hoarder, but I'm like I'm not getting rid of it. No.
Yeah.
I got to the point, like I used to donate clothes all the time to like take it to Goodwill, change out my wardrobe. And I cannot tell you how many items I have in my head. They live rent free forever that I miss, that I wish I didn't get rid of. Right? And you don't want to have to buy it again. I mean, it's never the same thing. You can't find it. No.
And the quality is not the same.
This quality is nowhere near the same.
Quality is not the same. You can't find it. So if something's like raggedy, then it's not, you can't donate it.
Right.
Either.
Then it's trash.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
So, but now I feel like I've also gotten into that phase of life where I've bought most things at least once. Like, I have a black dress, I have a white dress, I have a red dress, I have a blue dress. So now it's like I'll buy the pants from Dye Lab, and then I'll just buy 5 in different patterns or design, and I just wear the same thing. Yes. Every day, and then I don't have to make decisions on what to wear.
And you already look great.
Yeah, so it's like one outfit, and it just keeps like, so I'll buy the same.
Yeah.
If a t-shirt fits, I'll buy the same. So it's kind of like
just smart.
Just not. I do always look the same, but but I know everything fits. I know everything fits. I know how it's gonna feel
exactly,
and I don't know. It takes 5 minutes instead of like wondering where what is. It's just And then if I'm going out, then I'll wear something different. So
well, you know what? You must be so busy though, because you just opened this Pilates studio, Peachtree Pilates. So if I can imagine wanting to, become more efficient in how you're dressing, because you have your hands full between kids, married, like you have a whole life. How's the studio going?
It's going really well.
Yeah.
And I feel like I should have done it. I should have opened a studio a long time ago.
Really?
Yeah.
No, why?
Well, I always had this, I always felt like if I open a studio, it's going to be so much. And I think you see the stats or the numbers from other people who open studios. And I, in my mind, I thought it's going to be so expensive and, at least $100,000. And, I don't want to just, take that risk.
Right.
And I'd also managed the studio at some point, and it was a terrible year.
Really?
Like terrible. Yeah. And, even just watching colleagues who managed studios, how stressed they were, how they were always on call.
Right.
I think in my mind, I just thought, I don't want to be tied down. I don't want the stress.
Right.
I don't want to be in that situation again. And I don't want to have to spend $100,000 to be in a situation I don't want to be in. So I always put off opening my own studio. But now that I've opened it, it's so different owning your own space where you have the authority to make certain decisions. You're not getting permission from somebody else to do certain things. So things happen a little faster. And also you design the schedule and the space around what works for me.
Interesting.
So it's been really good. And it's been really nice because, I have the most amazing clients. I feel really happy going into the studio, and it's such a nice space with nice people,
right.
And we all love to do Pilates. So it's actually been really good. And I don't have any staff, I don't have full-time staff yet.
Right.
I have one teacher who's working part-time and she's amazing. So I feel like I don't have the stress of having really, stressful instructors working for me, because that's another thing. When you work in fitness, you would think that everything is always just joyful, because typically when you go to a class, the instructor, the instructor is friendly and happy, but there's so much drama in fitness. So
behind the scenes.
Yes, there's so much drama, and I'm not dramatic at all.
Right.
So
you're not trying to do all that.
Maybe I am, but I don't think I am. Maybe other people think I am. But the amount of drama that always used to be there between teachers and just doing the most bizarre things to each other, and it was just, I was like,
Really?
I don't want that on a daily basis. But now that it's my own space, I don't have to have that, because I can hire the people that I feel really comfortable hiring, or bring in people that I feel really comfortable with, and get along with. And then and I don't need to have a big team either. It's a small, small studio. So it's been really good.
You were reluctant, though, about starting the studio for all the right reasons. I mean, it makes sense. So what made you now decide, I'm going to do this, I'm going to open the studio?
So it's kind of, the studio was kind of one of the last pieces in a long chain of events. About 3 years ago, I went to a conference, the Black Girl Pilates conference. And so it was all Black Pilates instructors and Black, Pilates enthusiasts. And at the conference, there was a lot of people talking about teacher trainings. And in the process of talking about teacher trainings, people started asking, well, who in this room runs a teacher training that we can attend? And not one person was running any kind of educational courses. So I think in that moment, it kind of dawned on me that the reason why there's such a kind of gap in the Pilates space is because we don't have enough Black educators. We don't, people, if people see themselves reflected in a space, they're more likely to go into that space. But if you don't see anyone of true authority in a space, if everybody of authority looks different from you, the studio owners don't look like you, the educators don't look like you don't, in your mind, you can't envisage yourself being part of that community or in those spaces. So in that moment, it kind of dawned on me, we need Black run teacher trainings.
Right.
And I'd already started doing workshops and little educational, courses. And that was kind of the decision maker to start a teacher training. And originally I'd said I would do a mat teacher training. And when I announced that mat teacher training, I think we had 18 people on the first round, which is a crazy amount for teacher training.
Right, in the first round.
Yes, first round. And
this is, at that point, was that all online because you didn't have the studio yet, right?
yeah, so I didn't have a space. So that's another interesting story. So I was like, I'm going to do it in my house because I have,
house.
yeah, because I had like all this Pilates equipment in my house. And so I didn't have any furniture in my living room. I just had Pilates equipment for me to work out on.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I already have this space and we can fit about 10 people in this space. And then, when 18 people signed up, so the booking system I was using didn't allow me to restrict signups. It was open until I closed it. Yeah, it was open until I closed it. And one morning I woke up and 18 people were like, they had signed up for the training. So I was like, okay, I guess 18 people are interested. I don't want to turn or refund anyone, like have to turn people away. And I was like, oh God, give you the wheel.
That's a lot to turn away too. 8 extra
yeah, and then
people?
who do you choose out of that group to say, well, you can't do it with us this time? So I had a space for about 10 people in my house. But then, like with 18 people, I was like, I don't even have enough restrooms in my house. Like if 5 people need to go to the toilet at the same time, it's going to start being a disaster. And I was like, okay, universe, God, just find me I'm going to wait for you to give me a solution. I have a couple months before this is supposed to start. And one of the girls on the training who had signed up really early was a friend of mine from childhood. So I was talking to her like about this, like a couple of days later, I said to her, I don't know what's going to happen because this was supposed to happen at my house. And now there's so many people. So I have to find a hall or somewhere where we can go. And she was like, oh, I just opened a physical therapy office and there's just so much space in that office. Why don't you just come do it there? And we're not fully functional yet. So you could just run your training weekends. So I was like, okay, let me come look. And when I went to look, I was like, was this a studio at some point? Because it had mirrors. It was like,
really?
Yeah, it was perfect. So yeah, so we started the mat training in this space, which was just honestly the universe just aligning dots, because when I look at it, I was like, this was meant to happen.
Right.
And about halfway through the training, it was a mat training. So everybody started asking, when is the comprehensive, which is the full training with all the equipment. And I was like, well, I guess it's in the fall. This was in the spring. So I was like, it's going to be in the fall, I guess. Because at that point, you also realize you have a responsibility. If you tell people that you're not going to run a comprehensive and they have to go look for comprehensive training somewhere else, they have to start from scratch. So they'd so most trainings will want you to do all of their training weekends so that you are familiar with all of their training material. And each training has small differences, maybe not big differences, but small differences. And ideally, you should be in training from start to finish with the same group of people, not kind of like hopping in with different people halfway. So, they'd already paid us for the mat training. So there's this feeling of like, well, okay, we need to continue this educational process in order for you guys to be fully certified. And there was enough people who were interested in doing the full certification. So I was like, okay, I guess I need to, we're going to have a comprehensive in the fall.
Right.
And in order to have a comprehensive, you need to have a studio space because it's just so much more than the mat. People need to come in and
have all that equipment.
Yes. And they need to have somewhere to practice. So they need, when you train them on the weekends, they need to have somewhere during the week to come and practice that material. So for that, you need to have a studio.
Okay. So this mat training must have just been this past spring.
It was spring of 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
Spring of 2024. So fall of 2024 is when we, when the first round of comprehensive training started. So I was still in my friend's space, but it was getting tighter as she was, building her operations.
Right, as a PT.
Yes, it was just getting like really busy in her space. And her clients were, clashing with the students on my training. Right. And I was like, okay, I think I need to look for a bigger space and maybe a space too that's closer to Atlanta, because we had a lot of students that were traveling from, like Midtown and like downtown Atlanta all the way up. We were in Beaufort at the time, all the way up to Beaufort. So it was a long drive. And I could tell it was, halfway through that, 3 months into the comprehensive, it was starting to become like a lot. Well, because, they were sitting in traffic and then, sometimes.
Even on the weekends, especially going north, the weekend traffic is crazy.
Yeah. So it was starting to be a lot. I was like, okay, if I'm going to continue running this training, we, like there has to be a space closer to town for all of us to be able to meet and to be able to practice together. So I started looking at locations, and, I looked for about three more months, and I was almost giving up because I was like, Atlanta is so expensive.
Is it?
It is so, I'm like, if I have to open a space here, I'm going to have to teach 100 hours of Pilates every week. And then I'm going to be so worn out.
Oh my goodness.
But I found a space, like just as I was about to say, let's stay in Buford. We're just gonna have to stay here.
Yeah.
I looked at one last space, and when I went into the building, it's this weird building because it's in DeKalb Peachtree Airport.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I had driven past it, and I was like, we're not going to be in an airport. Like, this is just so strange.
I love that airport. It's so fun to go.
Yes. And actually, I actually love being there now. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. But the first time I went there, the first time I looked at the building from the outside, I was like, I don't think this is going to work out. It doesn't look, there's no storefront signs. Like, it doesn't look very good. And I don't want to go in there and then pay the same amount of rent that I would pay somewhere where I could have a storefront.
Right.
But then I looked at everything else, and the math wasn't mathing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, let me call this guy. And I was like, okay, the rent is reasonable. Let me go look. And I went into the unit, and I was like, oh, this unit would be perfect if it didn't have walls running through it. And I'm not going to remodel this unit. And, I was thinking that in my head. So as I was looking, I just told the landlord, I said to him, well, there's a lot of walls and I really need an open space. And he went, yeah, sure, we can do that for you. We will tear down the walls, and we will paint, and we will, he was so enthusiastic about a Pilates studio being in the building. And he said, this would be perfect. You have your own HVAC. Like, he was just so positive. So I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is like another dot getting ticked. So he covered the whole renovation process, which was great. And all I had to do was move in on the day that it was done.
Wow.
Which was great. Yeah.
Like the universe, God just provided.
Yes.
That is so cool.
It really, like, every time I kind of doubted myself, or every time I kind of thought maybe this is not a good idea, because you sign that lease and it's literally like buying a house.
Is it like 5 years?
Mine is 3 years with the 3-year extension.
Okay.
But even committing to 3 years was like, was like a house payment.
Yes.
And I was like, this is like more than my mortgage, like every month. And what am I committing to? But every time I would kind of doubt it, something would happen where, it'd be like, no, you need to go ahead with this. Yeah. So, and it's been a really good, as soon as I opened, there were already people like just stopping by because there was no other Black-owned studios in the area.
Right. And you'd already taken all this time on social media to develop a tribe and a following. Yeah. I'm sure these people were so thrilled and excited and looking forward to being able to practice with you in real life.
Yes.
IRL.
No, it's been so that part has been good. Yeah. And I remember like the week before I opened, someone calling and saying, I want these 3 days, reserve them for me. And I was like, ma'am, I haven't even got like a calendar scheduled yet. She was like, I want the spots before someone else takes them. So it's been a good journey. I mean, I'm still learning a lot and still putting a lot of systems in place. Like I said, I only have one part-time teacher.
Right.
I would like to bring on more people, but I also want to make sure I'm bringing on the right people. Right. But, I'm taking it slowly, and yes. And
my goodness. Back up though, real quick, because a lot of people aren't familiar with Pilates. So can you tell us, I have a few questions, so one at a time, but I'm going to tell you up front. I want to know why Pilates, and then the difference really between the mat and that comprehensive with the equipment and reformer and all that stuff. So why Pilates?
So I've been in fitness since 2003. Which makes it 22 years. Yeah. Yes, something along those lines. Wow. So that's how long I've been teaching for, like, or training for. And I feel like I've cycled through all the different modalities. And for me, when I finally took a Pilates session, and not like a group fitness Pilates session, like I did a one-on-one with someone who was going through a classical training program. My body, when I left that session, like I had such bad knee pain before that session, my back was hurting. And just in that one session, I walked out thinking my knees don't hurt anymore. Really? So I was like, I need to know more about this. And the more I kind of like went into Pilates, the more I was doing Pilates and practicing, the better my body felt. And I was like, I think this is the one thing that I haven't gotten certified in that I should have gotten certified in much earlier and much longer time ago. And this is what I should be doing with my clients, not all the other, cheaper, faster certifications. I need to do whatever these teachers are teaching me is what I want to know. So I went through a certification at the place that I worked at the time because they offered an in-house certification. And it was a classical certification, but the equipment we used wasn't classical. So when I went through that certification, I felt like, okay, I know a lot more, but something's still off. And then I started looking around, in the local area for teachers who taught classical Pilates. And I found my teacher, Joel Crosby, and I started training with him. And when I went through his certification, it was so amazing. It was such a good certification with him. And he's such a great teacher. So I feel really blessed that he lived 10 minutes away from my house.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah.
That's so, and what's the difference between classical and the original training that you did?
So the biggest difference was the equipment. So the equipment feels so different when you're on classical equipment because it's designed for Pilates. So there are connections that you make in your body that just feel, you feel your back, you feel your stomach differently. You can automatically, your glutes switch on, if you do the classical exercises. Right. It's so I'll describe it like if you play tennis with a racquetball racket, or if you play tennis with the wrong racket, or with a pickleball, if you're trying to play tennis with a pickleball, racket, it probably will not feel so great and you will not make as many shots, it just won't feel right. Right. But if you use a well-made tennis racket, it will just be like, your serve will be amazing. The ball will swivel the right way. And I feel like it's the same with classical Pilates. If you do classical, the original exercises on the original equipment with the right spring tension, with the dimensions of the equipment at the right place, things were designed a specific way to support this method of exercise.
Oh, okay.
And the contemporary equipment, it's similar, but it was made by, oftentimes it was made by engineers who, weren't doing Pilates themselves.
Wow.
And it wasn't fine-tuned to the method. So now we have all this contemporary equipment. And usually when people buy equipment, because it's still expensive, no matter what you buy, it's expensive.
Right. They're huge, right?
Yes. And it's huge pieces. So usually when a studio buys equipment, and you have a salesperson that comes and tells you buy our equipment because it's the best. So you naturally think it's the best. And a lot of people buy this contemporary equipment, and once they have it, they just make it work. Right. And I think over the years you've had this.
It's so expensive. You're not going to replace that.
Yes. And then, a lot of times if you don't know, if you're not familiar with classical equipment, you end up just not even knowing how it feels.
Yeah.
So you just buy the thing and then you make the Pilates that you teach work around this piece of equipment that's not necessarily designed for Pilates. So, well, I don't want to say it's not designed for Pilates, but it's not designed for classical. For the classical exercises.
Right.
So what happened, for someone like me, once you experience the classical equipment, you can't, if you really love Pilates, it's hard to forget that feeling on the classical equipment. Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's just something the springs just kind of pack your joints the right way. They just shift things automatically into the right place. You don't have to look far. Versus if I use a piece of contemporary equipment, it just feels a little off. A lot of times using
overcompensating.
Well, things are not at the right place. So doing the exercise doesn't connect into my body the same way. I have to fight so much harder to find those connections.
Okay.
So for me, that's the equipment is a big difference.
Yeah.
But then also if you take a contemporary certification, so if you take a full contemporary certification, a lot of times the original exercises are no longer taught in those certifications. Or if they're taught, they're just kind of breezed over. You get a list and you learn that list for a day or two, but you're not immersed in it for a year to 2 years.
Wow.
And it's more, in my opinion, a lot of what we see out there now is more like fitness, just regular aerobics.
Right.
But, adapted to the Pilates equipment like the reformer and the chairs.
Right.
But the connections that you look for in Pilates are no longer visible. You don't see them anymore. Like, so people don't even know what two-way stretch is. They don't know, they hear about the principles, but are they really being applied to what's going on in that at that point in time? People, you know, like people don't look for, like, they don't understand the original exercises because they feel so different on this new equipment. The person who's teaching them probably never understood the exercises properly. So it's just, to me, a lot of it is just like aerobics on the reformer, and not saying that it's, you know, it's still exercise. Aerobics is great. I used to be an aerobics teacher.
Right. So, you know.
Yeah. And I love,
and it's fun to be like on a machine versus like for me going to take, especially back in the, like, I don't know, 10 years ago when I lived in New York, I would take all these different classes, and they were never like classical Pilates were like a form of, and they were so expensive, but it was something about, there was something novel about doing essentially aerobics on a machine that was like, this is why I'm here, because the novelty of it. I don't know what I'm getting necessarily, and it kind of feels like a regular aerobics class, but like this is... So Pilates, you know, there is an aerobic effect in the classical work, but it's so hard to explain exactly what it is because it's so different from everything else. But I think what people find the most, especially when they come to me, they feel parts of their body that they've never felt before, and then they learn how to use those parts of their body throughout everyday life. So if you can't figure out why you have back pain, for example, or like for me, you know, why I was having knee pain, I was like, I'm trying all these things. I'm foam rolling, I'm strength training, I am, you know, like I am doing yoga, I'm doing all this stuff to fix my knees, and my knees just keep getting worse. And then I came to Pilates, and it turns out most of my days spent in internal rotation. So my, you know, no matter how much I'm working out, so most of the day I'm, you know, my toes are turned inwards. It's just this, it's not even visible necessarily, but it's just this teeniest internal rotation. And over time, it means that my inner thighs were not switching on. It means that the inner line of my legs wasn't being supported. So my knees are just slowly caving towards the center. And I always thought, well, I have K, you know, like I'm K-legged, you know, like I have, but it turns out I'm not. You know, I just need to stand differently, and I need to learn how to engage the right muscles to keep my feet more in a slight turnout, and then I don't have knee pain. It becomes natural.
Yeah.
So how long, like if somebody comes to, let's say someone never done Pilates and they came to the studio, do you do classes or just one-on-ones?
I do both. I do one-on-ones, I do duets, and then I have some classes. It's not a class studio, like a group class studio. And even the classes are very small numbers. So when I say
focus on everyone, right?
When I say class, it's like the maximum I have in a class is 5.
Okay.
So I have 5 mats, which means that it's going to be maximum 5 people on a really busy day of the week, but typically it's between 2 to 3 people per class. So it's always a very small group, and it's semi-personal training more, you know, like, or private session.
Right. So if they if someone came in like with I don't know, let's say lower back issue, how long could they expect to get to the root of what that issue might be? Like, how long does it take doing Pilates? Because I assume you need to learn how to, like, you know, you notice the subtlety within your own body before you can pinpoint, like, I never touched that muscle. I'm assuming, I don't know.
Sometimes on the first session, I'm like, I can tell why your back hurts. Oh, really? Yeah. You know, like if we have, you know, like people come in and, you know, like, even in the first couple of exercises, so someone comes in and says they have back pain, and then they lay down on the reformer and they start to move the carriage, and they can't push the spring out. So it means that something's going on in the leg, like something is not functioning in their legs. That if your legs are not functioning, your spine sits on top of your pelvis, which sits on top of your legs. So something is off there, and we need to kind of start to, you know, just get some functionality back into your legs. And maybe just doing that will start to support your pelvis and your spine. Other times they, you know, like people come in and you can tell they're completely like over to one side once they lay down on the equipment, because all the equipment in Pilates is, or most of it is sort of like a little square. So you can look at the person's body inside of the square, and you can tell if they're rolled or twisted to one side versus if they are, completely centered in that little box. So if you're not centered in that box, very likely that you're not centered in your body. So sometimes just, saying, okay, shift a little to the left and then do these 10 repetitions so that your bones settle back in. Even for them, they'll start to say, oh my God, I feel something on in my left hip, or I feel something in my right ankle. And even just things like that will start to tell us, like, that's just a space that you haven't even thought about. You haven't felt it for a really long time. So sometimes the first session will, help us discover things. And then sometimes it does take, 2 to 3 sessions. A lot of times people come in, they're really nervous on their first session. So they're holding out to so much tension. And by the third session, they know they're not going to hurt themselves. They become a little bit more familiar with me. We repeat the same routine for at least 4 sessions. So they start to become familiar with the routine and they start to feel confident in the routine. So sometimes in that relaxation process, I can be like, oh, I see something that I didn't see in the first 2 or the first session. And now that I see it, oh, now we can work on it. So sometimes it takes a couple of sessions depending on the body. And sometimes in the first session, I can be like, your glutes are completely not firing at the right point in time. They're not turning on when they should be turning on. And we can go over here and start to do these exercises that start to fire up, those parts of your body or stimulate them. And then when you leave here, like you continue to feel those spaces.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that most people are so amazed by. They go, oh my gosh, when I walk up the stairs, now I consistently feel the back of my legs engaging. And I'm like,
wow, yeah. It helps you be more conscious too. And so when people come in though, are they usually coming for, because, I have a lower back or knee issues, or are people coming for fitness? Like, what are their goals typically when they come?
Different people for different reasons. Some people come in because their wife made them come in.
Oh, interesting.
Your wife thinks it's going to be a good thing for you to go do Pilates for an hour. Yeah. So,
it's relaxing or to get in touch with.
Yeah. Just for you to feel certain things in your body. Or if you're complaining all the time about your knee pain, your wife is like, you're going to Pilates today. And they just, she books you a session and you have to go. So sometimes it's because sometimes people just come in for, Pilates right now is trending. So people are curious. They want to see what's going to happen. Yeah. So they come in because they heard this was like a good thing to do.
Exactly.
And then other times it's like specific things like, I can't figure out why my feet hurt all the time or why I have lower back pain. And my doctor says I should come do Pilates because it's good for that. And then a lot of times, honestly, people just want something that's not the gym. Yeah. So especially for a lot of female clients, I feel like Pilates provides a safe environment for people who don't want to be working out with gym equipment. So a lot of people will come in because it's just not, it's just not the gym. Right. There's often not the male gaze. Yes. In this, it's
much more private, right?
Yes, it's more private. If there are men in the room, it's still like it's a safe space.
Right. Right.
And it feels I think even for the guys, it's not a competitive space. You're just focused on your own workout. And then, so it's not competitive. It's, if you have a piece of equipment, you have it. You don't have to, no one's looking at you trying to get it from you.
Oh, no one's in line behind you waiting.
Yes, exactly.
So can you get the same results as because the gym, I would imagine you're going for weight training. Right?
I guess it depends on the person.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't get the same, it doesn't feel the same as doing lifting.
Right.
So for people
heavy lifting especially.
It doesn't feel like that. It's a form of strength training, because especially if you work with the equipment, you're working against resistance. So it is a form of strength training. If you're really weak somewhere, you will get stronger, let's say in your triceps. If you're really weak, or if you're really weak in your back, you will train your back muscles. Will you gain 10 pounds of muscle, like pure muscle because of Pilates?
Right.
Probably not. But will you be functionally strong? Yes.
Yes. So I saw a video on Instagram the other day with this Pilates instructor. I was going to send it to you, but I was like, oh, I'll just tell her about it. I think I saved it. But he's talking about how Pilates influencers on social media, they typically have one body type, right? Did you see this video?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. They typically have this one body type, which is like the ideal standard, right? So people who we're just like scrolling Instagram and are, wanting to have that body type. We see Pilates instructors have it and we're like, I need to do Pilates and then I'm going to get that body. So talk to me about that and about like what you can realistically expect, especially if you're interested in, changing your body type. So maybe that be gaining weight or losing weight or, getting snatched. Can you get snatched?
If that's your goal, absolutely. Like if you combine, I want to be really careful with what I say too.
Yeah.
If you combine the right diet with any form of exercise, whether it's Pilates or anything else, you can get snatched. Pilates is just a form of working out. So combined with the right lifestyle, enough sleep, depending on what your hormonal balance is, like if it's combined with all the right things, if you spend an hour doing Pilates, it's an hour spent exercising and it will change your body. Now, the reason why a lot of people there's this like long, lean, people associate Pilates with long and lean is when your body is balanced, it looks longer and leaner than if your body has bad posture.
Right.
Yes. So if your inner thighs are collapsing, if your shoulders are hunched, if your stomach is like if you're rounded and your belly's kind of protruding, it looks very different from someone standing tall on their legs, with a nice long spine and with shoulders like connected to their back. So Pilates teaches you to find these connections. I think that if you are a large body and you stand taller, you will be a longer looking large body. If you're a small body, you will be a longer looking small body. Yes. But what I also see a lot in the industry, right? Like as someone who does a lot of Pilates and teaches Pilates, I see a lot of people starving themselves and they're just very thin or on shots, They're either which is it's not a negative thing because I have clients who are on Ozempic
and balancing it out.
But it's truly they needed to go on Ozempic because they had health challenges and it's helping them like overcome those health challenges. So, but then there's a lot of people who are not necessarily facing any particular health issues and, they're combining Pilates with losing a lot more weight. And if you were thin, you were thin. Yeah. You were just a thin person. Right. So, I do see that too. I see people come in who, I can't tell people what to do with their life and I'm not a doctor. But I'm like, I find it really hard to believe that you were at a weight level that really needed to be controlled with, with chemicals, like external, but
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. I feel like if people look in the mirror and they're happy with themselves, then if you go to bed at night and you're at peace with the choices you make, then I'm happy for you.
Right. Yes. Exactly. That's what it's all about. But I do think like for Pilates, I was originally introduced to Pilates so I don't know what year. This is like probably early 2000s or late 90s. My mom bought a Pilates, like a mat Pilates. I don't know if it's VHS or DVD. I can't remember. At Costco, like a box set. And she started doing them. And of course, I did too. I was always mom. Like, you know my mom. My mom was so into fitness and I always wanted to like be fit like her.
And it shows.
And it shows, right?
It shows, yes.
She looks fantastic.
If you haven't seen her mom.
Yes. I gotta show a picture of the mom.
Yeah, y'all need to go like search her Instagram page because your mom is goals.
She is. Honestly, she is. And I knew that like as a kid because she was probably only in her 40s at this point. Yes. And I'm like, oh, my mom's so beautiful. I want to do all the things my mom does. But yes, that was my first intro to Pilates. And then I liked it a lot because it was, I was like, let's say I'm like 12 or 13. So I'm like doing the flutter kicks and like it's like the first time I was actually like feeling my body, like my muscles, right? And strengthening my core. And it was like all about the core. But back then, and increasingly so, it's like really only until like recently with social media, and I hear people speaking about it different, and I know you, I always just imagine when they say lengthen and like long and lean, Pilates giving you that, I always like pictured Barbie. Like Barbie's like I'm gonna gain 3 inches of height. Like in my childhood brain, and I always wanted to be tall. So I was like, Pilates is for me. But I always envision like, yes, I'm like Gumby. I'm gonna be stretched out by this. But it's unrealistic and it's not exactly what it means. I think it's so like what you said, it's so simple. We're talking about like posture and holding your body and like all of these ways that we even hold our body that cause pain, let alone not make us look long and lean.
Yes.
It's like correcting your posture. And do you know about, is it Alexander method?
I'm not an expert, so yes.
But it's like, we learned about that and I went to school for acting and we took classes in Alexander technique. And it's like all about, when you're going to school for acting, it's about recognizing your own. It's almost like a little bit like a Pilates of focusing on your body and understanding how you hold yourself. But it's really the goal of that is to create a blank slate so that when you're playing a character, you can put on a new, way of physicality. But yeah, Pilates I like that. I like that it seems to be about awareness, self-awareness.
Yeah. And we have to look at like the original person that created Pilates, right? Like the long and lean. I mean, I've been in fitness for a really long time now. I feel like I'm strong, but I would not necessarily look at myself as a long and lean person.
Right.
So, and with the amount of Pilates that I do, like, I'm like, I wish I could, my thighs are never going to be like lean.
Like with the
like Barbie thighs, they're not my bones. I've stopped growing. So the leg length is not changing. Like maybe my spine can be a little bit less compressed, but like when people come in with this expectation of being long and lean, I'm like, we can make your body a better version of itself. And like I said, by balancing things out, you will have your hips and your thighs will look more in line with each other. So that in itself will give a little bit more just like, symmetry.
Yes.
But if we look at the original person who created Pilates, he was short and stout and stocky.
Really?
Yes. But he was strong. He was really strong. And he was very muscular, but I would not look at him and think this is a long, lean man.
Interesting. And was he the first to describe it that way? Is he the
No.
reason? Oh, okay.
So what happened is we got a lot of dancers who went to him for rehabilitation after injury, and they discovered his workout, and it was a great workout that made their dance careers better. These people were already long and lean. They were already, to be a dancer, at least back then.
Yes.
Maybe now things are changing. You don't have to be quite as thin anymore, but I think, it's still required to be a thin person.
Right.
So
you're going to be naturally thin in a lot of cases.
Yes.
Have a certain body type.
Or you're restricting your weight gain, right?
Yes.
Like you're really restricting how large your body can get.
Yes.
So you had a lot of dancers going in to work with Joseph Pilates who were very tiny people, very, very lean, tiny, small people.
Yeah.
And, I think it comes from the fact that you have these naturally thin people or people who are really good at weight restriction.
Right.
Doing a lot of Pilates, and they were the people who made all the VHS tapes. Oh. So once the video started coming out, I can't think of anyone who was not a dancer that made a Pilates video before social media.
Interesting. Yeah, because your dance career is only so long, right? You got to move on to something else.
And that was the whole thing. So it was a lady called Romana who, started teacher trainings for dancers so that they could have a second career in Pilates.
Wow.
So all the Pilates teachers ended up being ex-dancers or people who were involved in that industry, or 90% of them. I don't want to say 100% because there's always people who came out of offices and became Pilates teachers too. Right. But 90% of the people who are from that second generation of teachers is an ex-dancer.
Wow.
In some way.
And so then we see their bodies.
Yes, we see their bodies.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, people sell their body and they think, well, if you live the way I live, you will be like me.
Right.
Or at least that used to be the thinking, right? Like people couldn't understand why one person would be gaining weight. They must be eating too much in order to be that size. And if you only ate the way I ate, then you would be like me. And fair enough, for some people that might work, because if you're not eating a lot, like for the weight restrictive people, If you
Right.
restrict somebody else's weight, they probably will lose weight. But a lot of people are just naturally a certain way.
Right. And have different needs.
Yeah. And their fat distribution, like we have to think about, some people have more fat cells than others. And if you just don't have the fat cells to store fat, you're going to be a leaner body. There's a
Right.
reason why, Kenyans are often leaner than Americans. It's just, there's genetics involved, and they just maybe just don't have the same amount of fat cells that, people who grew up in a different part of the world have in order that need those fat cells in order to survive whatever their environmental circumstances are. So I think you had all of these naturally, or, who were people who were already slim teaching this method. And you had all these people who wanted to be skinny, thinking if I do what those people do, I'm going to be like those people. And the reality is that's not always true. But marketing is marketing.
Exactly.
And people
sell these DVDs.
Yeah, right. And if long and lean is the word that sells, then people will use that until it's no longer the selling word. Like organic became a word that sold a lot. Low fat was a really big seller, but it was a huge sales.
Huge.
Yes.
Especially back then, in the 90s.
And now we have matcha.
Yeah.
And we have
matcha.
Now, whatever sells, now everybody's making matcha products.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other words. So,
collagen, that's a big one.
Yes. So Pilates also is a word that sells. So everybody who is bringing out a workout these days wants it to be Pilates.
Yeah.
And they will put the name Pilates in front of the workout, even if the workout is not Pilates.
Wow.
Because they know that people somehow associate Pilates with a desire that they have.
Right.
And it will sell their product.
So when you said before, you basically said some people are good at calorie restriction. The way you say that, I think that is so spot on, because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
If you look at, I think people assume if I ate the way you ate, this thin person, then I would be your size. But sometimes you don't know how little that thin person actually eats. So you're not going to do that because you're hungry, because of culture, because it's not that serious. A lot of it's not that serious. But that's a really good way of putting it. It's almost, I never really thought about, of course I think about it that way, calories in, calories out, but to be like, are you good at this? Is this a thing that you're good at and you want to do? Because not everybody wants to do it, and it's solely, most of the time, maybe I think the problem with the standard American diet isn't the everybody's eating too much. I think it's what we're eating. We're mostly eating processed junk food. That's the problem. It's not oh, you guys are just eating too much, brown rice and chicken even. No, you wouldn't have these problems if that was the thing. It's the processing. But if you think about it, it's if you are eating a healthy, wholesome diet with all of the stuff that you recognize that you could grow in your house, or obviously I'm vegan, but so for people who are not vegan, animal products are not highly processed,
just stuff that exists as it exists,
right?
Yeah,
then your body's going to be the way it is.
Yeah, and some people are big, and some people are, some people are smaller, and I grew up in a non-Western society.
Right.
I went to boarding school in Cameroon.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
And so everybody goes to boarding school at 10. If your parents can, they send you off to boarding school.
Yeah.
And I went to school with 800 girls, and we were all different sizes.
And you all ate the same stuff, right? Because you lived there.
But we had a very restrictive diet because, you were allowed to bring a suitcase, and you had to have your clothes in that suitcase. You had to have all the stuff, your bed sheets, your, toiletries, but you only allowed one suitcase, and then you could have some snacks. And that suitcase would last you for 3 months. So, there's only so much cookies and crisps, or chips and things that you can put in a suitcase in addition to your uniforms and your bed sheets and your toiletries and all the things that you're allowed, you just have this one suitcase.
Yes.
And we had the same diet for the 3 years that I was there, the same menu in school. And a lot of it was, I still remember the menu because
Really?
it didn't change.
What was it?
It was like, so I think we had like 5 things that we ate. We got beans, we got, stew and rice, which is like tomato stew and rice. And then we had like with a piece of meat, like just one piece.
One piece.
Yeah. One piece.
Not too much.
One piece the size of like your thumb.
Wow.
So it was one piece of meat with tomato stew and rice. And then we had beans and corn on another day, with cassava flour, which, like I think some like Caribbean countries, they call it farina, like, but yeah, so it's like a cassava flour that they eat in South America as well. And the Caribbean as well. And then we had one day where we got vegetables. It was Mondays.
You didn't have vegetables the other days?
No, we had vegetables on Mondays.
Wow.
Like we got like a green it was the same green vegetable
What
for
was
like
it?
Well, I don't know the English name for
Okay.
it, so I guess the closest thing I guess here would be like collards maybe.
Okay, yeah.
But it's like okongobong. So it's like you would have this green vegetable with pumpkin seeds.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it
Yum.
actually like Mondays were good days.
Yes.
And the food was oily, so it was good.
Oh, yeah.
So you had vegetables on Monday, you had beans and corn on Tuesday, you had beans and rice on Wednesday, you had beans and corn on Thursday again, and then on Fridays you had rice and stew.
You remember it all.
Well, it was the same menu for like
For 3 years?
For 3 years that I was there. For
Did
the
you
girls,
get sick of it?
the girls who were there for 6 years, they had it for 6 years.
Were
so,
you totally tired of it by like?
well, you started looking forward to the days when you liked the food.
Yeah, like that Monday.
And then the Monday where you're like, oh, the vegetables are really good. And then on Sundays we had plantains and like palm oil.
Oh, that's yummy.
which was another special day because plantains are expensive. So
Yes.
it was and then usually it was the only sweet dish that you got.
No dessert.
No, what? No. There's no fridge to put dessert in.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you had your cookies out of your suitcase.
Right.
Yeah, so you could eat that dry.
Make those last for 3 months.
So there was this not very varied diet, and everybody
Yes.
got the same. You had a plate. You got 2 scoops on your plate every lunch.
Yeah.
And yet, like some people were extremely thin. Like when I say thin, like bones.
Wow.
And then some people were medium sized.
Yeah.
Other people were large. Some people were taller.
Yeah.
Some people were, so there wasn't like one standard body that came out of eating this one standard diet. So that's
such a good point.
Yeah. So I think that kind of
Yes.
like made me aware of the fact that people are just different.
People are.
Yeah. It's like you can feed people the exact same thing. And maybe none of us was extremely large. Like we didn't have like health issue, obesity.
Right.
But there were still girls who were fat, like,
Yeah.
like who were, who had a lot of body weight.
Yeah.
That's just how it was.
Wow.
It was just like you had the skinny ones and you had the
Yeah.
big ones. And
That's such it's such a good reminder though. I think because we're so like we were talking about advertising earlier, marketing. It's marketing, right?
Yeah.
They want us to, and it's not they. I don't want to say they because like I'm an influencer, right? And I produce content. I share myself and my recipes and such. But what we're trying to do is get attention. And I think for me, I'm hoping that somebody might listen to this podcast and see us and be inspired and hear that and be like, oh yeah, this is a reminder. Like we all have our own bodies, and I'm not going to go out of my way and restrict myself and to have these unrealistic expectations for making my body a different type. But instead, I'm going to accept my body as it is, and hopefully, we're talking about Pilates. Like talk about something good for you.
Yeah.
Right. It's really about what you're putting in, like whether it be the food, the thoughts, the sleep, the hydration, the fitness, and it's about how it makes you feel on the inside. And like you're gonna be, I think if you put all the right inputs in, you're gonna be your best self. You're gonna look how you need to look. You're gonna feel good about yourself no matter how you look.
Yes. No, that part. If you put in the right things, and I think we can all be honest with ourselves. We know if we're overindulging in something. If you eat a whole tub of ice cream every night, probably not recommended.
Right.
But if you are in the regular calorie range for the day, and yes, there's slight fluctuations per body of what you can have. But if you're eating somewhere under 2,000 calories a day and you're getting your 3 meals and most of it is whole foods and you're still a little larger, then Maybe you're just meant to be larger.
Exactly.
And if it's incredibly hard, right? Because, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so weight loss was always a big thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're constantly trying to be like, if it's such a struggle to be a smaller version of yourself, like if it takes so much effort and so much, like investment and so much restriction and so much, you probably could be a smaller version of yourself, but it's not a natural thing for your body. It's not natural. Hard. And this is very different from food addiction, because I think that that's also a real thing. Like if you have if you have a food addiction where you really just can't control how much you're eating, or you wake up at 2 a.m. and you have to go eat 5 pizzas. That's a completely different, completely different thing we're talking about.
Right.
And it needs to be treated as addiction. Like that's something else. But if you're eating just standard meals, they're healthy, and you are not you're still not a thin person, then maybe being a thin person is a very stressful thing for your body too. Because that's true. Like people lose weight and they, maybe they get praised for it, and it, like they get told like, this is great. But the minute you put food back in your mouth, you're a big person again. I don't know. We just can't all be the same size.
No, we can't. And I
think it'd be like really boring too.
I know. That's what we teach kids.
And I almost
we
feel
don't
like,
do it ourselves.
I feel like when we choose, it's so funny for women. I'm talking from a woman's perspective, right? When we choose male partners, or when we choose,
they don't care.
Or when we choose a partner, right?
Yes.
Because I'm not attracted to women, but I know that there's women who are.
Yeah.
People are attracted to a variety of people. Like I don't want to be with my friend's husband, but good for her that she likes him the way he is.
Right.
Because, so I feel like there are people
That's
where.
so good. That's a good point.
Yeah. It's like, you're not always like, you're not attracted to just one man.
Right.
And even if, generally like, Tom Cruise was the most attractive man for a really long time. I'm just picking like people that I've seen on the cover of magazines. But if you met Tom Cruise in real life, would you really want to would you really want to date Tom Cruise?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Or
Tom Cruise, sorry, is a mess. He's a hot mess.
Or even like Brad,
what he looks like.
or Brad Pitt, or I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of like people like Lenny Kravitz.
Yes.
He
seems kind of cool though.
Yes, but if I met Lenny Kravitz today, does he actually meet my criteria for the person that, I think the thought of it, yes. But, I think he's like 5'6" or 5'4". I don't know. Like, we're attracted, but there are people who are genuinely attracted to him who, but maybe not me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think he's very, very I'm not saying he's bad looking.
How old is he now? He's like in his 60s.
Yeah, I think 60. So,
looking great.
Yes, very healthy. Good for him.
Very healthy. But you know what? We don't even know. But here's the thing. Because we see him online, right? We don't see him in person. We don't live with him. We don't know his lifestyle. We don't know what he did to get there. And just like we were saying with the Pilates instructors, you might be really good at restricting your calories. You might be on one of the shots. You might be doing drugs for all I know. We don't know. So it's what you're saying is it makes sense. Like, and it's just a good reminder.
It's good It's good to have a variety of people.
Yes, we need all sorts of people.
Yeah, we need large people, short people, tall people.
Yeah.
People with long hair, and it's all good. As long as you're healthy, if you go to the doctor, your stats are good. If you go to the doctor and your stats are not good, please do something about it. Like, don't excuse it as genetics. And, if be honest with yourself. Like, I was eating chocolate every day for breakfast at some point, and I have to be honest with myself. That was not a healthy habit.
That's caffeine.
It was not my body started reacting to it. Oh, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh no. I feel like you might have told me this before. I feel like this sounds familiar.
And I thought hey, it's fine because, I'm, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a good thing for me to do. And I used to eat chocolate with peanuts every day.
Really?
Oh my
gosh.
You had protein. I definitely have an addiction to peanuts.
Wow.
And I really had to just stop doing that because it was not good for my digestion. It was not the amount that I was. Yeah, it was and then I was restricted from eating peanuts for a while because I had braces. I couldn't eat peanuts. So when they came off, it was almost, I literally was like, I would stand, I wouldn't like take a handful out of the pantry. I would stand there and just like
eat them.
throw the bag and like shovel the bag. So I was like, so at some point I had to be like, Alexa, this is a problem.
It's so funny. We were talking about my mom before. She had that similar situation with cashews. And I remember when she like, you know what, she was like, it's too much and I need to stop. She would like buy a huge bag at Costco and she would just like, and I love nuts, but I never like eaten them like that, you know? But I remember my mom being like, that's all she wants to eat.
Yes.
What do you think that is? Do you think it's something in the
I think about that a lot. I think about like, why is it that I love peanuts so much?
Why?
Like what is, but I think that there's a part of it because Cameroon has really good peanuts. It's and like we have like, during the rainy season, we would sometimes just eat them for dinner.
Really?
But then I also think, when I was really little, and it's probably going to sound really gross, but children are not supposed to eat peanuts because they can choke on them.
Right.
So my dad would chew peanuts and give them to me. And it was like, I loved it so much.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And I would ask him, I was like, Dad, can you please chew some peanuts for me? And so it probably sounds really gross, but it was like his way of making sure that it was like a paste and I wouldn't like,
You would chew with them at
but I also think it's in places like Cameroon where blenders and things like that.
You don't have something like that.
I think people used to chew food and give it to babies.
Yeah.
Like you would give it to like you would just chew it, give it to the baby, and then you would be sure that the baby wouldn't choke.
I've done that with when my daughter was a baby.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it wasn't like when I think back, I'm like I don't see people doing that anymore.
Right. We have all these machines.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't like a big deal because he used to chew them anywhere. Like we would go out and he would just chew them and like, here, have this chew. And it was like my favorite thing in the world. So
that's really interesting. I recently was hearing about, and I think this is, I don't know the science behind it, but there's like a theory behind it of kissing. Like, why do we kiss? And there's a theory that it has to do with not just affection, obviously, but a sharing of each other's microbiome, especially amongst family members. And then, with the significant other, they become your family as well. So it's kind of like, you're not going to choose something necessarily probably and give it to somebody else's kid, but it's a way of like, it's a way of you're sharing your yourself with your child. I don't think it's gross.
Yeah, so I think back, like I still remember now, going up to him and saying, "Can you please, I want to have some." But and it was like me, like he loves peanuts, so it was like we were the two people who loved peanuts. Oh. So I feel like maybe there's a childhood memory attached to it. Yes. And then peanuts were one of the only things I could take to school, like the list of things that was allowed in boarding school. So like maybe there's also that. Who knows?
Now it's the opposite. Now that you're like barely allowed to take peanuts in school at all.
Well, in Cameroon, I don't think they follow all of that.
Yeah,
because no one's allergic to peanuts in Cameroon. So I think that's like
American.
Yeah, I think here when I moved west is when I realized how many people are allergic to peanuts.
Was it like that in England?
England,
that's where you lived before here, right?
I think people there were people with allergies and probably people with peanut allergies, but not like here. I don't remember the amount of people being allergic to stuff that are allergic to things here. Yes. But I think that might be more tied to, like in Cameroon, you have so much more exposure to just
everything.
Yeah, everything. I mean, there's definitely not the wipe down every single surface with antibacterials. People are clean, but they're not like disinfecting every single thing.
It's a different type.
Yeah, so you're exposed to a lot more, I guess, like bacteria and a lot more just illnesses. I remember like you get malaria. So there's like, there's just
so you're building your immune system.
Yeah, so I think people's immunity is probably a little stronger to like, and peanuts are a natural food,
right?
And seasonal too. Ooh. So you would have them. The peanuts grow in the rainy season. Yes. So you get more peanuts around that time, and then you have a break from them until the next season.
Versus like buying them at Costco and eating them all the time.
And you definitely don't eat them in the quantities that you do here because they're expensive. You have to shell them, process them. It's a very tedious process. So it's expensive to buy peanuts, and it's like a luxury almost. So you eat them sparingly and carefully. But I also think breastfeeding is a big thing. And the way women give birth here is also a big influencer on
your microbiome.
Just what's happening to children at a very young age. I mean, I gave birth to my first son in England.
Mm-hmm.
It was so different from my experience here. And I had a home birth with my second one, but
Mm-hmm.
I did go to see an OBGYN and, try to find out if I went to a hospital, what would be the process of giving birth in a hospital. And then I hear from friends who've given birth in hospitals. And there's certain things that are not even discussed as an option. Like women don't even know that they have these options during childbirth. And I do think things are getting better with doulas and with midwives and people choosing home birth more often. But for, until like the last 5 years when social media was exposing these things, most women were giving birth. And I think most still are giving birth in a hospital. And I think they just don't even know that you can let the cord pulse.
Yes.
You can, like you have, breastfeeding, when the child latches on, there's a bacteria exchange. There's a hormonal exchange going on.
You can have a lactation consultant.
Yes.
When it's difficult. Like you don't have to give up right away.
Yes. So there's exchanges happening in, like there's skin to skin exchanges happening. So if you give your baby a bottle for the first 3 months, there's stuff they're not getting from your body. So I'm all for dads feeding.
Right.
But I think, and I understand that people establish pumping early because you don't get as much maternal leave. And this is not to this is not to demonize what anybody's doing, but I do think that in that process, there are things that are not happening that happen in other countries that set you up differently. So maybe if you are, exposed to stuff on your mother's body, you build more immunity to things like peanuts.
Absolutely.
If you let the cord pulse, which, I think in now people give birth in hospitals too, but in a lot of African birthing scenarios, it's just not as, they're not just not as quick to cut things. And then babies live on their mother for a really long time in places like Cameroon. Like it's very, like baby wearing is so normal.
Yes.
So you're strapped to your mother's body for a majority of the day.
Yes.
And she just goes everywhere with you. Or if it's not your mother's body, you get strapped to somebody's body.
Right.
And you're just on a body. And I think in the process of not being in a cot or a bed or being separated from other people, there's an exchange happening that's not happening in a lot of children here now. So I think that the allergies, the birthing process, whatever you get injected with immediately after you get born.
Right away.
Those things all have an effect on what's happening. C-sections are fantastic and we're so grateful for them because a lot of babies would not be here. A lot of mothers wouldn't be here without them. But also, I was listening to a podcast the other day about, and I didn't know this until the other day, how during the passage through the vaginal canal, the babies are suctioning in stuff, like they're opening their mouth and eating things in that canal on the way out. And that stuff, it's all designed to improve your immunity when you get out. Right. So, I think that's more like we kind of like started out because what do you think causes more allergies? I honestly think like the younger years here have a lot to do with what causes allergies.
You know what? I'm allergic to a couple things and there's like, I was a C-section baby, but in my mother's situation, I think this was a late 80s thing, apparently, because it was extremely common. She did not need a C-section, but they told her before she even went into labor, probably in the last trimester at some point, oh, your pelvis is too small, which is not a thing. It's just like a made up thing. It's not real. You're probably going to have a C-section.
And your mom's pelvis doesn't look small.
My mom is
your mom is like, she's like a Coke bottle.
Yeah, she is. They literally made that up. And it was just like, I've read a lot about this. And apparently, obviously it's more convenient. The doctor can schedule the C-section, especially if it's not an emergency C-section. They tell you going in, you're going to have a C-section or you can elect it. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's like something like 40% of births in the United States are C-section. And then, like you just said, that inoculation that happens when you're coming through the birth canal isn't happening. But I have a friend who's a microbiologist, and when she had her baby, she had planned ahead because she just, just in case, because she knows so much about the human microbiome. she had done a like vaginal swab, and I don't remember how, but she kept it somehow in like the freezer.
Okay.
And so when she was going to the hospital to give birth, she wanted to have a home birth. She wasn't able to. She had to go to the hospital. She had her mother, who was there with her, grab it. Just so she said, just in case I have to have a C-section, this is my insurance, so that you swab the baby. Well, it's like, I don't know. I guess you swab the vagina at some point and then swab the baby once the baby is born, because I'm sure you're not getting the full spectrum of what happens during the birthing, but there is like certain bacteria that can still be passed on the baby. And there's been studies done and research done around that postnatal swabbing that apparently babies are still able to get some of that missing microbiome. So I have allergies.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to cashews and
the
pistachios.
thing your mom loves the most.
Yes. But you know what? As a kid, she ate, I don't remember her eating cashews. She ate so many peanuts. And I was averse to them. I didn't like the smell. I think part of the reason I have these allergies, maybe it has something to do with, and I wasn't breastfed very long. I think like a month.
Because they weren't encouraging it. Back then, I think they were experimenting so much on everybody. I think the doctors were just trying to get good practice in with C-sections, like getting, like becoming better at them. So they encourage them so that they get practice.
Exactly.
And even with my mom, I mean, my mom's much older than you, but even with my mom, her mother was encouraged to give her dried milk powder.
Really?
Because it was post-war.
And it was dry, not even formula.
No, not formula. Like, and, my mom died of cancer. So, it was such an interesting, I was having a conversation with my grandma and she goes, well, my babies all just got powdered milk and they were fine. And then she was like, actually, they're not fine. They're dead. So it's, and my mom always had issues, always had gut issues, there were so many kind of just internal things that, were constantly worrying her. She had a very weak immune system. Really? She would get if, all of us were fine in the house. She was the one who got sick.
Really?
She was, So, but I think it did have something to do with them, recommending this formula and then baby food out of a jar. So you don't get the breast milk. You don't get the, you don't even get.
And the jar is pasteurized.
Yes. So I think that, things have an effect.
It does. It does.
But I love that people are becoming aware. And, even things like vaginal swabs, like I said, I'm just learning about these. We're learning about that, the fact that that has an impact.
Yeah.
Awareness,
yeah,
builds changes and builds health.
Yeah.
And so I think the fact that people are getting aware is so wonderful. And that's where social media is so amazing.
I know.
And podcasts are so amazing.
I love it. I think also my whole goal with this podcast, and I've said it before, it's there are so few things in life we have control over. Literally. I mean, to your health only to an extent, right? There's the things that can happen that you have absolutely no control over. But you do have control over the choices that you make, right?
100%.
You are free to the extent that you have control over your consciousness and your decision making. And, to an extent, some of us we can't control everything, right? All the decisions. Yes. But when it comes to food and our lifestyle choices, those are the few things that we have the most control over. Absolutely. But they have such a huge impact, such a huge. So it's really we have way more power than we realize,
Yeah, and knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
So the more knowledge you have, the more you can change or just be aware and be in control of things.
Yes. Amen. Okay, so if somebody was watching and they're like, oh, I like this Alexa lady. I really want to try Pilates. But, maybe they're not ready to go to a studio. Because I know a lot of people are it can be intimidating. You even said, sometimes people come in there nervous. Or even what if it's a price constraint? What do you recommend people to do if they want to try Pilates but aren't ready to go in a studio?
So I was one of those people. And that's probably why I found it so late. Because, my biggest fear was if I go to that studio, they're going to try to sell me something, and then I'm not going to have the money to buy whatever package they're selling, right? I don't even want to do a session for $100. I just, I have a budget in mind, and they're probably not going to offer that, or I'm not going to be able to afford it. So I think the beauty about, you know, the internet is that there's so many options these days. So even at my studio, I have like virtual options. I have free videos that I've put on YouTube. I mean, my channel was started, my Instagram and YouTube were just to share, because I was like, everybody needs to know about this. You know, why is no one talking to Black people about Pilates? And this is like, I think like 8 years ago now. Yeah. So it's like, why didn't no one tell me this could fix my knees? Right. Why was I spending so much time in other spaces doing other stuff when I could have just done one Pilates session and pain-free in my knees? Yeah. So I was like, I need to tell everybody, because I'm not the only Black person with knee pain and back pain. And even if I can only like pass this on to like 1 to 10 people, you know, like that would change 10 people's lives, and good for, you know, like good for those 10. So I started out sharing about Pilates because I wanted people to find it, and I put out free stuff. So I have my YouTube channel where there's free videos. I'm not the only one. There's definitely people who are much better at YouTube than I am and have way more videos and larger libraries. So you could probably do mat Pilates for years. I will say, like, if you want to become really, like, if you want to feel all the things, it won't be as good as what you get in a studio, but it will be something. Yeah, it will be better than nothing. Right. And you can start out with that. And at least it will let you know if you like this or if you don't like it, whether it might be worth investing in a session a month. And I understand, like, some people really don't even have $5, you know, to go to the studio. Every studio that I have worked at, including mine, needs something. And it may not be the same in every studio, but for example, like the last studio that I worked at, he needed someone to clean the studio. And he paid cleaners, I think like $300, because he had a huge studio. So he would pay cleaners like $300 per cleaning session. Now, if you are really good at cleaning and you offer that and you actually do a good job, like not that you go in and you're like a crappy cleaner, but if you go in, and you could do a trade. Yeah, you could say, hey, I will clean your studio every Tuesday, and I will be here, and I will do an amazing job if I can come into or the equivalent value of classes. And I always have people doing things for me as a barter.
Yeah, it's like in yoga, you know, that's how it's always been.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't put out there what you know, because I mean, at the moment I have a couple of people who are bartering with me. So I don't need anyone in addition to that. But I have a couple of people who are using the studio and coming to classes, and I give them every once in a while, if my schedule is light, I'll say, hey, let me give you a private session because you've done such a great job this week. So they even get a private session from me. So there are options. You just have to really be wanting this. Yes. And
that's that decision making. You got to get creative with yourself. Yeah.
And then, so that's the next level of like not even having to pay anything, but being able to use a studio.
Yes. And like college students. I used to do work study and yoga in college. Yeah. I was literally broke. But most of us are in college, and it works.
But I always feel like, and this is not just Pilates, if you really want something in life, you really start to think about it, it starts to happen. Yes. For everyone saying you don't want it bad enough. Like maybe you're interested in doing Pilates, but you don't really want to do Pilates. And then I have pricing points, right? Like I have the option to come in and work out for $20. Oh, wow. Which is the same as most other, you know, like fitness classes. Right, so I have something called open practice at my studio. Now, you either need to be very well versed in using the equipment already. So if you've bartered at a different studio and you know how to use the classical equipment, you come in, you show me that you know how to use it and you know the sequences. Like, it's not just any person off the street that can come in. But you can, if you're a teacher, for example, and you just need a practice space that's not the studio you work at, because sometimes that's also stressful, you can come in and use the studio for $20. Nice. And I have that price point or that option there. Now my classes start at $40, but you know, if you, depending on your commitment and how many you buy per month, you know, the price goes down to, I think, something like $16. Ooh, yeah, but it's just what package. Yeah. So it's not, you know, like, I feel like, yes, if you come in for a single class, like if your commitment to me is one class, then it probably will be, you know, like it's not a cheap, I'm not going to say it's cheap because it's not. But if you're like, I know I want to do this, I'm going to do this multiple times a month. I feel like it's like any gym membership. Yeah. You know, like if you use it, you get good value out of your membership or the package that you buy.
Totally.
And same thing with private sessions. I mean, private sessions, because you are taking an hour of someone's private time, I always want people to think about what they require from a job for themselves. So if you are not willing to work for less than a certain amount per hour, why would you expect someone who spent 2 years, like training, and, all of us who are really into Pilates are still in training. Why would you expect those people to work for less?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So
respect.
Yeah. It's like pay people what you would want to earn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like it seems like you're building a community too. It's not just like when it sees one off, like, I don't know.
Yeah. We don't really get far in that session.
You don't get far. And you don't get far in a lot of areas of life in general.
Yes.
When you're not committed and not part of like something larger.
Exactly.
Oh, and
Pilates, like anything else, like you've got to commit to it for 6 months and see what can happen.
Yeah.
But there are options when it comes to going to a studio, or when it comes to getting started in Pilates.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, so how can people follow you, find you? Alexa and Peachtree Pilates, which, by the way, the name is amazing.
Thank you.
It's perfect.
It was, so that was, I realized there was no studio called Peachtree Pilates.
In Atlanta?
I was like, in Atlanta? Yeah. So there's definitely Peachtree Yoga, but there was no Peachtree Pilates. So I was so excited.
And the alliteration is chef's kiss.
Thank you. I love it. I love my studio. So you can find us at Peachtree Pilates on all platforms. So it's peachtree.pilates on all platforms. And my Alexa Idama Instagram is Low Impact Fit. So you can find me there as well. And if you're in Atlanta, it's at 1954 Airport Road, Suite 214.
I love it.
Yes.
And what's the website for
PeachtreePilates.com? Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, good. And people are going to have to go by. I'm going to have to come by.
Yes.
I can't wait to stop in, because I haven't done Pilates in a long time. I'm a yogi.
Yes.
I'm a yoga girl. But I realized, I've had this knee issue that's been bugging me for a little too long. I blamed it on tennis, and now I'm like, wait, I need to go to Pilates.
Yes, you need to come into the studio. We'll fix it.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Janae. Thank you.
Thank you.